So you have some sentences that you can mark over here, page 40. The second line, positioning the client as an active partner in his or her behavior change journey. Positioning the client as an active partner in his or her behavior change journey. So what does this mean? You're trying to make them, they should have that accountability. They should feel like they are taking the decision. You need to give them that power. Always babysitting and spoon feeding is not going to work, right? They should take that commitment. They should tell, yeah, sir, I can do this, or maybe we can do this, you know. So you are making them an active partner in their behavioral change. You are not the person who is just helping them do that. You're trying to make them self-independent. Then the fourth line, the ACE mover method provides the foundational skills for communicating effectively with clients, but it is not the equivalent of health coaching certification. Just because you are using the ACE mover method or the ACE ABC approach doesn't mean you are a health coach. Health coaching is a different certification that you need to do after doing ACE. So you can look at 3 steps that is given over here. Step 1. Step 1, you can mark from the sentence called identify, from the word identify. Step 1, identify what the client hopes to accomplish by working with an exercise professional and what, if any, physical activities the client enjoys. So you need to ask the client, what kind of exercises do you enjoy? Again, over here, you're asking open-ended questions. So open-ended questions are the key to sparking this discussion. Okay. Step 2 will be what? The second line, questions like what do you need to start doing now to move closer to your goals? The more important question that I usually like to ask is the second question that you see over here. What do you need to stop doing that will enable you to reach your goals? This is the question that I like to ask my clients. Okay. Step 3 is all about collaboration. It is all about collaboration, and here you are doing something called as SMART goals. SMART goals means specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. This we'll look into in our next chapter. I mean, upcoming chapters on behavioral change and all that. Okay, so this is basically the ABC approach. Come to page 41, third paragraph. The third paragraph that says a primary goal of every personal training session. You can make a note of this. A primary goal of every personal training session should be to have the client wanting to return for the next session. That should be a primary goal, not just weight loss or give them a very good workout. No, they have to come back. The only way they'll come back is by giving them exercise that is suitable for them up on their level, right? So you can mark the third line also in that same paragraph. Exercises, I think fourth line, exercises and intensities should provide an adequate yet achievable level of challenge, and progressions should be appropriately matched to the gains that the client has made since the last session. Okay. Second paragraph is also important that you can mark. I mean, not second paragraph, the paragraph right below it. Fitness assessments, once thought to be a mandatory starting point for any exercise program, are not actually necessary for many clients. Okay. This should not be should not be confused with health screening. Health screening you should be doing. There is no going around it. You have to do health screening, which should be conducted with each client to determine if he or she has any limitations. Okay. Then mark the next line. Before conducting a fitness assessment with a client, it is important to determine if the assessment is necessary to help the client reach his or her goals, and if the client is interested in completing the fitness assessment. So just because you have learned a bunch of assessments in the upcoming chapters, you will learn a bunch of assessments. Okay. You will learn mobility screening. You will learn Apley scratch test. You will learn Romberg, sharpened Romberg test. You will learn a lot of tests, a lot of assessments you're going to learn. Just because you have learned all these things doesn't mean you have to use all these things on your client. No, some clients don't want it. Their goal is something else. Like, for example, there are some agility related tests. Why would you do that if he does not have any goal, any performance related goals? He has just come to you for weight loss, right? Later, if he develops that goals, yes, you will do that. Second thing is you have to ask them if they are okay with that assessment. They are ready for that assessment. If they are telling, no, I'm not comfortable, I don't want to do these assessments, then why would you force it on them, right? A primary goal is client-centric approach. Okay, so you'll probably give them only the assessments that you think is required for to help them achieve their goal. Only those assessments you will be checking on them, right? So in our first session, what did I check? I checked your basic anatomy knowledge. Why? I instead of directly starting the class with anatomy, I told you, basic anatomy knowledge is going to help you in these chapters. So let me check what is your basic anatomy. So when you told me, no, I'm not comfortable with anatomy yet, I want to learn about it. That's when I started. And I also explained, this is the reason I'm teaching you anatomy. And I also gave you an option. Okay, if you want to skip the anatomy part and directly start with chapter one, I have no problem with it. We can directly start with chapter one. But you told me at that point, no, if anatomy is required, let's do anatomy first, then we'll do chapter one, right? So this is what does this mean? Before giving any assessments or before giving anything, I'm checking with you. Is it conducive to your goals? Is it in alignment with your goals? Are these assessments going to help you reach your goals faster? And second thing is, are you okay with the assessments? Are you ready with the assessments, right? Are you interested in completing the fitness assessment, basically? So in the next paragraph, they're giving you a small model. They're telling you how you exactly conduct your sessions. Okay. So in the paragraph, you can come to the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line. Fifth line: stability, joint mobility, functional movement, balance, cardiorespiratory fitness, muscular fitness. So you can start marking from early training sessions. Early training sessions that include exercises that provide assessment information can be the key to success for many clients by helping them to get moving the right away. Okay. They also provide the personal trainer with useful information to help him or her modify each client's program during subsequent sessions to build on that success. Okay. So when I do an assessment, for example, I do a overhead squat assessment for you because I know that you have come to me for weight loss and fat loss and all those things, or even hypertrophy. I know that squats is something that I'll be making you do, whether my goal is hypertrophy or whether my goal is fat loss. In both the cases, squats is definitely going to benefit you. I know that, right? So I'm doing a squat assessment or an overhead squat assessment, and I find out that your ankle mobility is not very good, or you are having knee valgus, meaning your knee is caving in while doing squats, or I found out some defects, right? So this is going to give me a baseline. Now I know which are the areas I need to work on so that I can get you to the point where you can do squats with proper form, so that I can then get you to the point where you start doing heavy squats and get good results as a result of that, right? Get your hypertrophy or whatever. So that is what they're explaining over here, that the personal trainer will also have a idea, useful information, and you can give them subsequent such sessions to improve or to build on that particular aspect. We can also see some assessment that you'll also get some successful results and you can build on that success. That is also a good thing, right? Next page, page 42, they are mentioning a lot of behavioral change stuff. What are the some of the key steps that facilitate fitness related health behavioral change include implementing strategies for developing and enhancing rapport, identify each client's readiness to change behavior, which will come in chapter 3, creating a caring, supportive climate. So all these things are not that important. You can just mark a few things that I'm asking you to mark. Okay. The fourth point: fostering exercise adherence by creating positive experiences that build self-efficacy. This point is important. Why? They are telling something that there's some mentioning about self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is nothing but your self-confidence. So the one strategy to improve your self-confidence will be by creating positive exercise experiences. Let's say you are bad at push-ups, and on day one, I'm making you do a bunch of push-ups or pushing exercises. Do you think that will be a positive experience for you? No, that will be a negative experience for you, and you'll probably think twice before coming for my second session, right? That's the reason it is important that you give positive exercise experience on day one so that you can build that person's self-confidence or self-efficacy. You can mark the seventh point: fostering a sense of self-reliance to empower clients to take ownership. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then the ninth point: implementing relapse prevention, helping clients transition from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic motivation. And finally, the third last, factoring a client's external stressors into total fatigue to avoid training plateaus and prevent overtraining syndrome, which means you have to check for that person's external stressors. If they are telling that their job is very hectic or suddenly the work pressure has increased, at this point it will not be a good idea to give them an HIIT because they're already going through stress. You're introducing high intensity interval training. What will happen? They'll probably burn out or they'll probably drop out from your sessions, right? That is why this is important. You need to make sure that you're not overtraining your client. So you need to look for external stressors like that. If they are complaining of a lot of soreness, then on top of that, if you force them with a high intense activity, what will happen? It will probably lead to overtraining, right? Okay. Now we are coming to cardiorespiratory training. Now it is time to implement the ACE IFT model. Okay. So here everything is given in a table format for your convenience. That is one good thing this 6th edition people has done. Okay. It is table 2.2, page 45. You can mark this table. If you just go through this table, you'll understand a lot of things about the entire cardio model will get covered in this table. That is a very good thing. That is a convenience thing. If you're short on time, it's like almost like having notes, right? You can directly refer to this table. So if you look at this table, we have 3 stages. One is base training, second is fitness training, third is performance training. Here, RPE is important. What does RPE stand for? RPE stands for ratings of perceived exertion, which means, for example, in this session, I am asking you, hey, can you tell me something on a scale of 0 to 10? Can you tell me how difficult this session is or this chapter is on a scale of 0 to 10? 0 meaning nothing at all. It is like piece of cake. 10 means very difficult. Okay. 5 means hard. 3, 4, all these things means not hard. Okay, fine. Now, if I ask you to rate this session on a scale of 0 to 10, what would your rating be? What rating would you give? So far, what you're doing, what would be the rating that you give on a scale of 0 to 10? Cool. So you give a rating of 6. So similarly, in an exercise environment also, I can ask you the same question. Let's say I'm making you do bench press, or I'm making you do push-ups, or I'm making you do burpees, right? And I'm asking you in the middle of the session, sir, can you tell me what on a scale of 0 to 10, what is the level of difficulty of this exercise? Then you'll give me a number just like this. That will let me know, okay, so this is the intensity this person is feeling. Getting it? So that is nothing but RPE, ratings of perceived exertion. Okay. In base training, what you're doing is focuses on moderate intensity cardiorespiratory exercise. In bracket, they have given RPE 3 to 4 that you can mark. Okay. RPE over here is 3 to 4 in case of base training, while keeping an emphasis on enjoyment. So here your emphasis is enjoyment, creating positive experiences, improving their overall relationship with cardio so that they don't hate cardio in general, all those things. Keep intensities below the talk test threshold. So what is talk test threshold? So before talking about the talk test threshold, in the bracket they have given below VT1. Before talking about that, let's first talk about talk test. What is talk test? So let's say you are working out with me. I'm making you do some burpees or I'm making you do jumping jacks. In between, while you're doing jumping jacks, I'm asking you to say ABCD, ABCD. I'm telling, sir, can you tell me, can you narrate all the alphabets? Can you tell me all the alphabets? And you're telling me like this: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W. Okay. So when you're talking like this, that is, I can understand, okay, the intensity is very low. This person is comfortably talking like that. That means no problem at all. He's at a very low intensity. Now, if you're telling like this, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. You see that? Now I know that your intensity is slightly higher. It's not that easy. Okay. So this whole thing is called as talk test. So I'm asking you to talk, and via your speech, I'm trying to test how much is the intensity. Okay, so this talk test you are doing in base training phase. So in fifth edition, it was different. Okay, in aerobic efficiency phase and all we were doing. Here they are telling in base training phase, via this talk test, I mean, you need to keep the intensity that is below the talk test. I mean, below the talk test threshold. What is threshold? Talk test threshold means what? We are talking about VT1 over here. What is VT1? VT1 means first ventilatory threshold. So what is first ventilatory threshold? Or what is ventilatory threshold in the first place? Now we know that in a room that you're sitting right now, there is some ventilation over here somewhere, right? There is some small hole from where air is passing, going out and coming in, right? In your room right now, there is somewhere there is a ventilation in your room. All of us has a ventilation in our room. Similarly, you have ventilation in your body also, your mouth and your nose, right? Your nose and your mouth. So you're breathing in, you're breathing out, air is being exchanged, right? So over here, what is happening? Ventilation is happening. Okay, so now what happens when you put on your clothes, your jogging clothes, your hoodies, and you start jogging? What happens? This is what happens inside your body. In a straight line, everything is going. As the intensity is increasing, you are breathing a little bit more. More ventilation is happening as the intensity is increasing. As you're jogging, more and more you're breathing. Everything is going smooth in a straight line. And you're probably able to talk comfortably. You're probably talking, wearing a wireless, Bluetooth, and you're talking to your friend while you're jogging, right? So this is ventilation. Ventilation is happening and you're going in a straight line. Now a point comes where you cannot breathe comfortably like that. Either you have increased your intensity, you have increased your pace, or you have been running for a long time and now you're slowly getting tired. Now what happens? Now you're reaching a threshold of that ventilation. Now a smooth exchange of air is not happening. Now you're probably breathing like this. Right? You're breathing like this. You're starting to breathe heavily. So that point where you reach that point where you're not able to breathe comfortably, or you're not able to speak comfortably, that point is called as threshold. That's your limit. So that threshold, when it happens for the first time, we call it first ventilatory threshold, or VT1. Okay, now different people have different VT1s. For a very fit individual, they can run for a long time before reaching their first ventilatory threshold. For an obese client, if they're just doing brisk walking, they might reach their first ventilatory threshold. Okay. So now if you look at the sentence, you'll understand. Keep the intensities below the talk test threshold. That is below VT1. So you have to give them an intensity that is below the VT1. So you have to give them an intensity where they're able to talk comfortably and they're able to do the exercise. It can be slow jogging, it can be slow cycling, whatever, right? That is what you're doing in base training. Third thing is increase duration and frequency of exercise bouts. So how do you progress these clients? Obviously, if it's a beginner client, probably just 5 minutes of cardio is going to burn them out, even if you're giving them some easy exercise, right? So first you have to increase the duration from 5 minutes, get to 10 minutes, get to 15 minutes, get to 20 minutes, right? The second progression that you can give them is increase the frequency. Initially, probably you're saying, okay, sir, 1 day a week, we are going to do cardio. That's all. Don't worry, we'll only do it 1 day a week. Then you're saying, okay, now we'll do 2 days a week. Okay, then you're progressing them saying, sir, now third day, I will not be there, but you can do it at home. Okay, so third day will be your cardio. So Wednesday will be your cardio. Thursday and Saturday will be your cardio session. Okay, so you're increasing the frequency. First you increase the duration and then you increase the frequency. Okay, still you're not increasing the intensity, mind you. You are still keeping it where? You're still keeping it below VT1. You're still keeping it below the talk test threshold, which is below first ventilatory threshold. Only thing you're doing is you're increasing the duration and then you increase the frequency. What is next? Progress to fitness training when the client can, this is important. This line is important. Okay. Progress to fitness training when the client can complete at least 20 minutes of cardiorespiratory exercise below the talk test threshold. So that is your criteria. So how you should also know, right, when a client is ready for the next phase, when can I take this person to the next stage? That is also important. You are not forever going to keep them in base training. That doesn't make any sense. So what is that criteria? 20 minutes. Once they're able to perform at this intensity, at this pace below VT1 for 20 continuous minutes, boom. Now they're ready for fitness phase, fitness training phase. Okay. So now let's talk about fitness training phase. What happens here? Progress cardiorespiratory exercise duration and frequency based on the client's goals and available time. Okay. Integrate, this is important. Second point is important. Integrate vigorous intensity cardio. So integrate vigorous intensity in the bracket RPE 5 to 6. You can mark this. Here the RPE is now turning to 5 to 6. Now you're integrating vigorous intensity, that is an RPE of 5 to 6 cardiorespiratory exercise intervals with segments performed at intensities below, at, and above VT1 to just below VT2. When you read this sentence, you'll probably get confused. It might not make a lot of sense to you. Okay, so let me simplify this. So what they are telling is, now you're trying to work a little bit on that person's efficiency, right? So before talking about that efficiency and all that, you need to know one more thing. You need to know about VT2. So what is VT2? VT2 is second ventilatory threshold. So everyone has two limits, two threshold points, not one. First ventilatory threshold is when you reach your first threshold, where you're just starting to breathe a little more difficulty breathing, little more difficulty talking, slight difficulty has come. You are able to talk, but you're not able to talk comfortably. Okay, you just started to feel that discomfort. That is your first threshold, first ventilatory threshold. Now think about it. What if you're running really fast? What if you're running really fast? A point will come where you reach your second ventilatory threshold, where now you're barely able to speak. Now you're probably talking like this: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Oh man, I can't speak. Okay, so that is your second ventilatory threshold. So imagine a mad dog is chasing you. What happens when a mad dog is chasing you? You're running all your might, right? You're running with extreme power, extreme speed. What happens? Now you not only reach VT2, you cross VT2. You even cross VT2. Okay. So this is how I can maintain the intensity. I can keep you below VT1. I can keep you at VT1. I can keep you slightly above VT1. I can keep you slightly above VT2. I can keep you between VT1 and VT2. I can play around. So when I have these parameters, I have so many options to play around. I can torture you in different ways. If today you are not in a very good mood, you're feeling very lethargic, you're feeling very low energetic, what will I do? I'll keep you below VT1. Okay, if tomorrow, let's say you are feeling a little more better, I'll challenge you a little. I'll probably take you at VT1 and then bring you back to below VT1. Or I will do something else. I will introduce some interval training and I will try to bring you above VT1, then I'll take you below VT1. So all these ways I'm going to play with you. Okay. So in base training, we saw that you are always below VT1. So there is no confusion over there. Whereas in fitness training, what are you doing? You're performing segments of the exercise at intensities below, then at, and then above VT1 to just below VT2. So that just below VT2 part is important. What does that mean? That means I am not letting you reach your second ventilatory threshold. No, not yet. You're still in fitness training phase. I know that in my mind that you're still in fitness training phase. You are not ready for that intensity where a mad dog is chasing you. Okay, I don't want you to even reach your VT2. I'm keeping you below VT2. My only goal at this point is just to introduce some interval training so that you slightly go above VT1 but below VT2. Okay, slightly above VT1 but below VT2. And then come back to below VT1. Or I'll take you till VT1 and then again I'll bring you back. It's some kind of interval training so that your overall stamina increases and you get some kind of a new challenge instead of always keeping you in that boring below VT1 phase. Right? That is my goal of base training. And here, what is the RPE? RPE is 5 to 6. Remember that. Don't forget. In base training, RPE was 3 to 4. Now it is 5 to 6. Progress, moderate and vigorous intensity cardiorespiratory exercise. Sorry, where were we? We just finished fitness training, right? We just finished fitness training phase. Now we are moving to the performance training phase, which is the third phase of cardiorespiratory training. Okay. What are we doing here? In performance training, we are progressing from moderate and vigorous intensity cardiorespiratory exercise. So from now you're progressing that exercise, whatever moderate intensity you are doing, now you're progressing it slowly in performance stage. Program sufficient volume for the client to achieve his goals. Here, volume is also important. So let's say I have a very big goal, right? I want to compete in the national levels. I want to compete for kickboxing tournament or something very high. You'll probably have to increase the overall volume of training that you're giving. So you'll probably have to give me cardio 4 days a week or 5 days a week. Or at the end of every session, you have to give me a little bit of cardio so that the overall volume increases, right? Only then I will be able to face that level of intensity when I actually take part in that event, right? That is the whole point of taking a person to performance stage. That is the reason they are telling program sufficient volume for the client to achieve his goals. Third point is integrate near maximal and maximal intensity. So look at this. This is important. RPE, what is the RPE over here? RPE is 7 to 10. First one was 3 to 4, then 5 to 6. Now it is 7 to 10. Getting it? Now we are talking about high intensity, not moderate. High intensity, 7 to 10. It's hard. It's very hard. RP 7 to 10, intervals performed at and above VT2. You can mark this. Performed at and above VT2. So now, can you see I'm introducing a new style of training over here. Now I am not only bringing you to VT2, I am also making you cross VT2 occasionally. Now this is my goal. Now my actual goal is to bring you to VT2, bring you to your second ventilatory threshold. My actual goal now is to even help you cross VT2. That is my goal now. Periodized training plans can be used to incorporate adequate training time below VT1, from VT1 to just below VT2, and at or above VT2. What does this sentence mean? Don't get confused over here. Okay, what this sentence, what they're trying to tell us, you're also trying to keep your clients safe, right? Just imagine you cannot directly begin with high intensity cardio, and you cannot keep giving high intensity, high intensity, high intensity. That is going to lead to overtraining, or it is going to lead to injury. So you're going to do a periodized programming. In case of performance training, you're going to have a period. There will be some phases where they'll be doing below VT1, where they're just warming up. There will be phases where they'll be doing between VT1 and VT2, and there will be phases where they'll be doing above VT2 or at VT2, right? So you have to cycle this a little bit. You cannot always go high intense, high intense, high intense. So you have to give a periodized program. That's how you increase the overall volume and progress. You need to give them proper warm up. So certain times you're going to spend in a adequate training time below VT1, then from VT1 to just below VT2, and then at or above VT2. Okay, these are the things that you're going to do. Okay, now let's do a quick recap. Okay, base training. Now you can come to page 43. Base training, what are they talking about? You read the first sentence over here. Base training is focused on developing an initial aerobic base in clients who have been insufficiently active. This should not be confused with aerobic base training that is performed by endurance athletes as the foundation of their off-season training. Okay, now this may sound very confusing for people who have purchased 5th edition book. Okay, because we actually have a phase that is called as aerobic base training. Okay, so forget about all that. Let's not talk about 5th edition only. We are only focusing on 6th edition, right? Here they are telling base training is focused on developing an initial aerobic base. So you have to be careful with the sentence that they are phrasing in the question paper. The focus of base training is for developing an initial aerobic base. We are trying to develop an aerobic base. Don't confuse this with aerobic base training, because aerobic base training is something that athletes do as part of their off-season training. Okay. Next thing also you can write, you can just have a read. Instead, it is focused on getting people to move consistently to establish basic cardiorespiratory endurance to improve health, energy, mood, and caloric expenditure, and to serve as a foundation for progressing to fitness training. That is simple, nothing much over there. Now mark the second paragraph, first line. Important. Any client who is not, especially mark that sentence, who is not. Any client who is not consistently performing moderate intensity cardiorespiratory exercise for bouts of at least 20 minutes on at least 3 days per week should always begin with base training. Which means what? Some enthusiastic clients are going to come and tell you, no, sir, I have been doing cardio. I know, I don't need all that. We can directly push. I wanted to push me. Come on, let's do it. They'll say all that, but when you actually push them, they'll probably feel dizzy, they'll fall down, and then next day they will never come. They won't come to the session. And their ego will also take a hit. So why go there, right? Be smart. Use this criteria over there. Are they able to do? You can tell them, okay, sir, definitely we'll push you, but let's wait a little. Let's push you on the second session or the third session. And you try to give them some exercise and see if they're able to do moderate intensity cardio for at least 20 minutes, 3 days a week. If they're able to do that, fine. You can start at fitness training level. But if they're not able to do at least that, you should start at base training. And you should stick to base training until and unless, what was the criteria that we saw? Until and unless they're able to perform exercise below VT1, that is at this intensity, for minimum 20 days, 3 to 5 days a week. Once they're able to do that, now we move on to fitness training. Okay. Mark one more thing. The second last line of the same paragraph. No cardiorespiratory assessments are recommended during the base training phase. Since many of the clients who start in this phase will be unfit and may have difficulty completing an assessment of this nature. That is kind of no-brainer, right? That is understood. You're not going to give any kind of assessments, especially, and when we are talking about cardiorespiratory assessments here, which you are going to learn in the upcoming chapters. So those assessments, those cardiorespiratory assessments, you are not going to give to these clients because they're in base training. Why would you give them, right? Then second, the last paragraph, you can look at the second line. No need to mark. If you want, you can mark. So initially perform 5 minutes of continuous cardiorespiratory exercise at a moderate or low to moderate intensity. So what are they telling? A client who has been physically inactive for an extended period might only be able to initially perform 5 minutes of continuous cardiorespiratory exercise at a moderate or even low to moderate intensity. In a scenario like this, personal trainer should give the client positive feedback for completing the 5-minute exercise bout and remind the client that bouts of physical activity of any length are beneficial in reducing their health risks and stuff like that. Plus, it is a good thing. You can make a note of it. Okay, they were able to do 5 minutes, which means what? 1 month later, when they're able to do 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you can show them, see, sir, 1 month, this is the result that you have got. Remember, day one, you were able to do only 5 minutes. What happened after 1 month of training? Now you are at 20 minutes. What does this mean? This is also like, you can use it to promote your business also, right? Not really promote. Think about it. If the person is seeing some changes, now they'll be more motivated to continue working with you. They have seen some changes, because most people, they will have unrealistic goals in their mind. In 1 month I want 6-pack abs, 1 month I want to lose 10 pounds. They'll have these kind of things in their mind. So at least if you can show them some kind of progress, that is a motivation, right? That is going to help them feel them that I should continue doing this. I like the results that I've seen. When I joined, only 5 minutes I was able to do. Now I'm able to do 30 minutes, 20 minutes. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Getting it? Okay, so another paragraph right after this, they're telling that this also you can mark. Regardless of the initial duration, the goal for all clients, from here you can mark the goal. The goal for all clients in base training is to create early positive exercise experience. Mark that. So what is the main goal of base training? To create early positive exercise experience. Cool? Cool. And remember, RPE is 3 to 4. Okay, that is also given. They are talking about top test. So here they are also mentioning over here 3 to 5 days per week for a duration of 20 minutes, which you already saw in that table. Okay, so no need to mark here again. But you can mark the next line, which they are telling clients during base training use the talk test. So the easiest, you can mark this. The easiest method for monitoring intensity with clients during base training is to use the talk test. If the client can perform the exercise and talk comfortably, he or she is likely below the first ventilatory threshold. So these two questions they may ask. They may ask you, how are you going to monitor the intensity for a client in base training? Your answer will be this sentence that I asked you to mark. If they ask you if the person is able to talk comfortably, then where is this person? Your answer will be he is likely below the first ventilatory threshold. Okay. And if they ask about ratings of perceived exertion, what will be your answer? 3 to 4. Then we have fitness training. Under fitness training, first line you can mark. Fitness training is focused on enhancing the client's aerobic efficiency. So now you're trying to enhance the person's aerobic efficiency, his overall stamina. Getting it? The second line also you can mark increased duration of sessions, increased frequency of sessions. This is always going to be a strategy to progress a client. First you increase the duration, then you increase the frequency. And the integration of exercise performed at and above VT1, which is again mentioned in the table that you saw. So here you are giving them moderate intensity cardio. Okay, it is not low to moderate anymore. It is moderate intensity now. RPE 5 to 6. Remember that. So here you're trying to add some variety to their workout. Now you can come to the last paragraph and mark this. Individual goals for fitness training will vary greatly among clients. Start marking from here. Those looking to improve fitness and overall health can benefit from increased exercise frequency, duration, and the introduction of intervals. So introduction of intervals, if they ask you, it comes in which phase? It comes in fitness training phase. You are not going to give them interval training in base training phase. You're only going to introduce interval training in fitness training phase. Remember that. You can mark this also. Clients with goals of longer endurance events, such as completing a 10K run or a half marathon, will need to include some exercise sessions of longer duration to reach the total exercise duration required to complete the event. Which means what? Here they have given you a clue. In the question, if they're asking, a client has come to you, a client Harry has come to you, and he's telling you that he has a one-time goal of running a 10K, or he has a one-time goal of running a half marathon. In which phase are you going to put this client? So you are going to give them fitness training. You're going to bring them to fitness training phase where you're introducing interval training and you're giving RPE 5 to 6. Okay. This is for people who have a one-time goal of running a 10K or running a half marathon and stuff like that. Now, obviously, you're going to increase the volume a little bit because this person has this goal, right? Now, in the last sentence also, you can mark. Many clients will spend years focused on various cardiorespiratory goals within fitness training, while those with, especially mark this, those with endurance performance goals. So your code word here is endurance performance. People with endurance performance oriented goals should be progressed to performance training. So if someone has endurance performance goals, you should progress them to performance training. Come to the next page, page 45. In page 45, under performance training, you are on mute, so no worries. You are on mute, so no worries. I didn't hear anything. Okay. All right. So performance training, which is page 45. Under performance training, you can mark the second line. This may include achieving a personal record in a cycling, swimming, or rowing event, running a local marathon in a time that qualifies them for a national level event, or finishing top 5 at a state or national championship. This line is important for you. Why? They'll sometimes give you a scenario where a client wants exactly this. That's when you know they're talking about performance training phase. Okay. Personal record in cycling, local marathon they have mentioned. Although they mentioned local marathon, what did they mention over there? In a time that qualifies them for a national level event. So read the full question. Okay. They're all talking about performance training. In these examples, the training programs will progress beyond the parameters of fitness to focus on performance through increased speed, power, and endurance. Because the goals of these people is not just to finish an event, not just to run a marathon, but to come top. So we are talking about athletes here, or at least people with athletic level goals. They don't just want to finish the race. They want to finish the race. They want to come first. Come to the last paragraph in this.
Hey man, do you mind if I change the room? Like,
Yeah,
go to
sure.
another room. Yeah.
Sure. So that was about performance training. Okay. In performance training, last paragraph, you can mark this also. Here, the third line, last paragraph, third line, variables such as distance, recovery, increased speed, or improved power. These are the variables that you'll be working on. You'll be working on improving their overall distance, how much are they recovering from each workouts, their speed has increased or not, their power has increased or not, because these people have high-fi goals, right? And here the RP is 7 to 10, mind you. So in under performance training, the second paragraph, last line also you can mark. RP is 7 to 10 and short duration. That is the main focus of this phase. The duration is short, mind you, because you cannot go high intensity for long duration, because we are talking about intensity 7 to 10, like really fast running and stuff like that. So we are going to do it for short duration. Okay. Here intervals are performed between VT1 and just below VT2 and at or above VT2. So in performance, you'll always take them at or above VT2. Eventually, you're going to take them at or above VT2, but as part of their warm up and in between, you're going to give them between VT1 and VT2. As usual, you cannot always give them above VT2, but your main goal will be to bring them at and above VT2. You can, just for your information, you can mark the last 3 lines of this paragraph. As a client's total weekly training time increases, a great percentage of his or her training time will typically be at moderate intensities to accommodate the increased training volume and to allow for recovery from higher intensity interval training. Okay. So in case they ask you, how are you going to deal with a client like this? And if this person has been training with you and his volume is already very high, how are you going to progress? Then you have to probably say like this. If this total weekly training volume has increased, a greater percentage of our training should be brought to moderate intensities to accommodate for the increased training volume. Because if you're increasing the volume, if you're giving them 5 days a week or 6 days a week of cardio, you obviously have to keep a majority of their workout sessions at moderate intensity and not high intensity, even though their goal is performance. Getting it? To accommodate increased training volume and to allow for recovery from higher intensity interval training. This doesn't mean you're not giving them higher intensity. Of course, you're giving them higher intensity. But one day, if you're giving them higher intensity, maybe 2 days you're going to give them moderate intensity so that they're recovering from that high intensity workout. Then again, third day, you can give them high intensity. Because here their goal is mainly to improve their cardio to high levels. Okay, with that, the cardio section is over. Okay, the cardio part of ACE IFT model is over. Now, is it okay if we continue with the next session? Do you think you can retain more if we go to muscular training? And in muscular training, we have 3 sections. Muscular training, we have functional, we have movement, and we have load or speed training. What do you feel?
You tell me, bro, whatever works for you. Like, do you think we should go?
Okay, I will be able to answer that question by asking you a question first. So how are you feeling so far? Are you able to take it inside? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Like, even you can tell me a scale of 0 to 10. What is the intensity?
So far, I've already learned the chapter once. So
Okay.
I found it easy. I
Awesome.
know this. I just was not really. I couldn't remember all of this because I learned it long before. Now when I read it again, I can recall everything. So I think I can handle it.
Perfect. Then I also feel that you can handle it. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue with second section, which is your muscular training part. So similarly, just like cardio, under muscular training also, we have three stages. We have functional stage, we have a movement stage, and we have a load or speed stage. So over here also, you can come to, okay, you can just start with this, right from functional training. Under functional training heading itself, they are telling the main goal of functional training is to establish, or in some case, re-establish postural stability and kinetic chain mobility through the introduction of
Hmm.
exercise programs that improve joint function, improve muscular endurance, flexibility, core function, static balance, dynamic balance. All these things we are trying to improve over here. Second paragraph, if you see, exercise selection for functional training will focus on core and balance exercises that improve the strength and function of the muscles responsible for stabilizing the spine and center of gravity during static positions and dynamic movements. Exercises for functional training will initially use primarily body weight resistance. As clients progress to movement training and load or speed training, it is important to still include functional training exercises in their workouts. These can be included either as part of their warm up or cool down. So basically, what are they talking about in functional training phase? Here, basically, your most important focus will be what? Their core strength and their balance. Their balance has to be good. Their core strength has to be good, right? And you're mostly giving them what? You're giving them body weight exercises. You haven't introduced any weights yet. Okay, you're only giving them body weight exercises. You're working on their balance, their ability to stand on one leg, okay, their static posture, their kinetic chain stability. For example, some people will have pronated feet, right? So you have to fix that. You have to give them exercises to fix that, right? So you're fixing all these things. Your entire kinetic chain mobility, all these things you're trying to improve. So that is what you're working on in the functional training phase. Now, just because someone has progressed from functional training to movement training or load training doesn't mean you're going to completely ignore this phase. Even at that point, you can give them as part of warm up. As part of the warm up, they can continue doing these functional training exercises, these functional exercises that you're giving them on core, balance, and all these things. Because that has to be continually improved. So that is your functional training phase. Then you have the movement training phase. In movement training phase, you just need to remember five primary movements first. What are the five primary movements in your body? So you can imagine if in case you forget this five primary movements, you can visualize something. So I can make you visualize something. Imagine that a train has come in front of you. You are going to another city or something. Okay, you're standing in the railway station. A train has come and stood in front of you. First thing, what are you going to do? You're going to bend and lift your luggage. Right? You're going to bend and lift your luggage. So you're doing what? You're doing bend and lift. Then you have to take a step, right? So moment you're taking a step, what you're doing? You are going on one leg. For a split second, you are on one leg. So that means what? Single leg movement. You're
Single
doing
leg
single leg
movement.
movement, right? Then you're going close to the door and you're pulling that door open. Especially in India, mostly the doors are closed, like if it is starting from the railway station. So you open the door like this. So what are you doing? You're doing a pulling movement, right? Then you're going inside, you go to your boggy, wherever your seat is. Imagine that your seat is on the top one, the top berth. You have taken the top berth. What are you going to do over here? You're going to take that bag and you're going to push up. You're going to do a shoulder press and you're going to place that luggage on top. Imagine that you just have one bag. You said something, you're on mute.
Pushing movement.
Yes. So pushing, pressing, it all comes under one category. Okay. Pushing is this. I know you're thinking that pushing should be this, but this also comes under push. I'll tell you what else comes under push. Imagine you are in a swimming pool and you're trying to get out of that swimming pool. What will you do? You keep your hands like this, you push yourself up.
Push.
So everything
Hmm.
is push, whether you're pushing down, whether you're pushing up, whether you're pushing forward. Remember, we studied planes of motion. You have
Hmm.
frontal plane. So pushing like this would be what? It would be transverse plane pushing, bench press, right?
This.
No,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about bench press, bench press. So that is also you're pushing in a different way,
Okay.
right? If you're keeping your hands closed and you're pushing like this, you're in sagittal plane. Just the plane is changing, but everything is kind of pushing. Push, press, all these things comes under one category. So you took your luggage and you kept it on the top shelf, on the top berth. Then what did you do? You turned and sat on your berth, right? You turned and you sat. So what is that movement? That is your rotational movement.
Rotational.
Yeah. So like this, you can visualize. You are standing in front of a railway station. Train has come. You bend and lift the luggage. You take your first step. That is your single leg movement. You pull the door. That is your pull. You go take the luggage, put it up. That is your push. Finally, you turn and you sit down. That is rotational movement. So these are your five primary movements: bend and lift, single leg, push, pull, rotation. And all these
Rotational.
movements you are going to teach your client in the movement training phase. Which means what? You're going to teach them how to do a squat. You're going to teach them how to do a lunge. You're going to teach them how to do those different plane movements, which is rotational movements, going from lunge to a side squat or whatever, right? Rotational movements. You're going to teach them some pushing movements. You're going to teach them some pulling movements, right? All of these movements you're going to teach them in the movement training phase. Okay. The primary focus of movement training is to help clients develop good movement patterns without compromising posture and joint stability. In page 48, under the second paragraph, it is given movement training exercises should emphasize the proper sequencing of movements and control of the body's COG. COG meaning center of gravity throughout the normal range of motion being performed. Okay. Body weight exercises are often used initially during movement training with external resistance introduced typically to build muscular endurance with an emphasis on controlled motion. Personal trainers should make sure that clients can perform the five primary movement patterns well before adding external loads to the movement patterns to decrease the risk of injury that can result from loading poorly executed movements. This is the reason check.
Do you want me to mark this?
Yeah, you can mark that. You can mark that. From body weight exercises, you can mark. Body weight exercises are often used initially during movement with an emphasis on controlled motion. Body weight exercises are often used initially during movement training with external resistance introduced typically to build muscular endurance. So what are they trying to say? I'll probably give my client an empty barbell and ask him to do a lot of shoulder press just with the goal of endurance and being able to control that weight
Hmm.
before giving him an actual weight. Getting it? So that maybe I can do, but the primary focus is just movement, helping them learn the movement first before introducing weights. Next, we come to the load or speed training phase, which is the final phase. Here, what are we doing? They have already given it in highlighted way. High intensity interval training, you're introducing HIIT. Speed work, in boxing how we have something called a speed work, where you do with the hands, you keep punching like this, right? So all these things are coming in this performance training phase, or we call it load or speed training. So we are doing high intensity interval training, speed work, plyometrics, meaning box jumps, clap push-ups, stuff like that, powerlifting, and other sport specific resistance. Okay, this doesn't mean that you will immediately after teaching them movements, you are going to ask them to do clap push-ups or plyometrics. No, that is not what it means. You're going to take them through stages. That is the reason we have something called a slash. Load slash speed, which means what? Load comes first. First you introduce weights. First you make them do squats with weights, deadlifts with weights, shoulder press with weights. Then you are going to introduce all these things if they have that goal. If the primary goal is just hypertrophy and body composition improvement, you'll probably just stick to load. If their goal is that no, I want some more, I want to be an athlete and I want to do this, that's when you introduce all these things. Okay. As with movement training, load or speed training should integrate functional training exercises to help client maintain Here we are thinking about maintaining. Maintain and enhance postural stability and kinetic chain mobility. Load or speed training also integrates the 5 primary movements that are the focus of movement training, with the emphasis being on loading the movements through different planes of motion, angles, speeds, and combined movements. So that is basically what you're doing in this phase. So first you're introducing weights to those movements, to those 5 movements. Then you're also trying to incorporate a little bit speed, trying to change the different planes of motion. Okay. Okay. So come to page 49. Under that, they what I told you just now, they are mentioned over here. Second line. Fitness related goals for this type of training include muscular strength, muscular endurance, muscle hypertrophy, and positive changes in body composition. That you can mark. And then come to the second paragraph. Clients who have athletic performance goals can benefit from training that builds speed, agility, quickness, and power. So athletic performance goals. So someone who has athletic performance goals, what are you going to include? You're going to include exercises that will build their speed, agility, quickness, and power. Before advancing, this is also important, before advancing to training for athletic performance goals, clients should consistently exhibit good postural stability, kinetic chain mobility, and movement patterns. They should also have a good foundation of muscular strength. See, this is important practically also in your real life. They should also have a good foundation of muscular strength to produce and control the force generated during athletic performance, focused exercises, and drills. So there is a very famous saying, power is useless without control. Okay, I am not impressed when I see someone doing a high box jump or a box jump for that matter. I am not impressed by that. I am impressed if they're able to do that box jump and stand over there without shaking, without losing their balance. Can you do that? Then yes, you are something, man. You must have seen all these martial artists, right? They will do a flying kick. In Chinese movies, you'll see they'll do a flying kick and they'll just stop over there in a good pose. What is that? That is nothing but
Control.
control, right? That is what they're telling over here. They should have good foundation of muscular strength to produce and control the force generated. Without that, you are not eligible for speed training. Getting it? Exercise selection for clients with athletic performance goals can include. So now they're talking about the exercises that you are going to give for people who has athletic goals. For the other goal, what were the examples? It was muscular strength, muscular endurance, muscle hypertrophy, and positive changes in body composition.
See,
Here,
body composition.
here exercise selection for clients with athletic performance goals can include powerlifting, plyometrics, speed work, and drills for agility, coordination, and quickness. That is the main goal. Okay, speed. We are giving them exercises that include powerlifting. Powerlifting, you know, right? Snatch, clean and jerk, powerlifting exercises. Plyometrics, you already know. Speed work, like the bag work, for example, right?
Yeah.
Drills for agility would be what? Those ladder drills, ladder shuffles, and all those things, you know. Coordination, quickness, all these things will be doing. Now, just like cardio, in page 50, they have given this whole thing in a table format, which is good for you. You want to give a quick revision, all you have to do is look at this table. Okay. So you can just mark the lines that I asked you to mark in this table. So even if you're doing a quick revision, you can mark the first line, just this part, establishing or re-establishing postural stability and kinetic chain mobility. Then come to movement training, first line. Just mark without compromising. Then come to the third point of movement training and mark maintain and improve postural stability, that part. Then load or speed training, mark the second line, different planes of motion and combinations. And then the fourth point, focus on adequate resistance training loads. And the final line, that is speed, agility, quickness, and power. Okay, after this they are talking about a experiment that they did. Okay, this is not that important, but they did a small experiment to check how effective is your ACE IFT model. So they put two groups of people, they tested two groups of people. For one group they used a standardized approach which was already recommended by the American, some body had recommended.
Hmm.
They used that approach for one group of people. For another group of people they used the ACE IFT model, and they try to compare the results, who got better results. Okay, and the results are given in page 52, table 2.4. So in standardized group, people's, if you look at their systolic blood pressure, that is their SBP, their HDL and cholesterol levels, triglyceride, blood glucose, there were improvements. But if you look at the IFT model, there was a 100% improvement in systolic blood pressure, 100% improvement in cholesterol levels. The triglycerides was kind of similar. Blood glucose levels improved significantly for people who were tested with ACE IFT model approach. Now we are looking at anthropometric responders. Basically, we are looking at waist circumference. So 92% people saw better waist circumference. Even body fat, think about it. Body fat, only 78.6% responded well in standardized one. Whereas ACE IFT, 100% people's body fat improved. Just imagine. Then you look at the muscular changes. The right leg stock stand was 100% for IFT. Left leg was 92%. 5 RM bench press and 5 RM leg press. Look at it. 100% people responded. All of their 5 rep max bench press increased. All of their 5 rep max leg press increased. Now under conclusions, you can see the first line. You can mark ACE IFT model elicited significantly greater improvements in VO2 max, muscular fitness, and key cardiometabolic risk factors. So in case they ask you about this, they won't ask. In case they ask you about this, this is the main conclusion. There were improvements in VO2 max, muscular fitness, and cardiometabolic risk factors. What is your cardiometabolic risk factors? It is nothing but your SBP, HDL, cholesterol, triglycerides, blood glucose levels. Okay, this is your cardiometabolic risk factors. All these things showed improvements a lot in IFT model. Second line point also, second line you can mark 100% of the participants favorably responding to training stimulus. Which means what? IFT model is very good model for improving your blood glucose levels, to improve your fat percentage. Why? Because we are having a proper framework, right? We start with base training, we move them to fitness training, then we move them to performance training. Even for this thing, what are we doing? We are first working on their functional movements, their kinetic chain and postural stability, right? Then we are moving them to movements, then we are loading it, then we are taking them to plyometrics. What will all of these things do? First of all, it will be very safe for the client. They're going through step-by-step process. Second thing is, as their movement and stability increases, what do you think will happen? They'll be able to push themselves much harder. Their box jumps will not be sloppy. Their box jumps will be perfect. And they'll be able to do a lot of box jumps, right? Because we also worked on their cardio and we brought them to above 82 and stuff like that. So now they're able to push themselves a lot. They're able to do high intensity. They're able to do all of these things safely. And that is the reason their body is responding so well to all of these things. Getting it? Okay. So the foundation of ACE is kind of complete with this chapter. You can stop the recording here.